won't work for you. voilà, c'est à toi.
Oui? DJ Cat, where's my DJ? Ben là, j'attends ma DJ, là. Elle est en train de finir sa petite bouchée. On revient. On a des gens qui reviennent de l'autre côté, d'en haut. On a du monde en haut. Je vous vois pas très bien, par exemple. Ah, je vois Laurence, je pense. T'as pas le droit de dormir, là. Okay, I heard we ran out of lunches. I hope everybody had the chance to eat. Tout le monde a bien pu manger, quand même. Pas trop. Il y a Falero en face, bon sushi. Il y a des friteries. Il y a toutes sortes de bonnes bouffes autour. On est dans le Myland, hein? On est bien localisé pour manger. Ah, moi, je vais vous jaser là, pendant que tout le monde s'assied, tranquillement, pas vite. Est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un qui peut aller peut-être juste de l'autre côté me dire s'il reste du monde? Khan, could you please go to the other side? Just make sure there's no guests left. We have a keynote starting really soon. Okay, where are my prizes? Okay. Chérie? There's no one there? Wonderful. Could you go get one of those, one of the big sale bag with the funky lunchbox boxes, please? The cute lunch boxes. Non, because c'était comme parfait avec ta musique, Catherine, alors... OK. Nathalie, je te vois jaser, là. Va t'asseoir. Moi, c'est parce que je vous connais toutes par prénom. Hein. Lina aussi, je te vois jaser, là. Carolina, you ready? We've got Milind coming soon. Okay, I think everybody's kind of almost back and seated. Je vais en profiter pendant que j'ai l'attention de presque tout le monde pour vous expliquer rapidement. Il y a des groupes de discussion cet après-midi. Qui assiste au groupe de discussion pour la première fois cette année? Ah, wow, super! Est-ce que vous savez qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec les recommandations que vous allez nous faire pendant les groupes de discussion? Il n'y a plus de mains. OK, extraordinaire. Ça, c'est la partie le fun. On va vous demander, on va vous poser des questions. Ça, le dévoilement, c'est tantôt, là, quand vous allez vous asseoir. Puis on va vous demander de faire un brainstorming, là, laissez votre esprit aller. Puis ensuite, on va vous demander de revenir dans le concret puis de nous faire des recommandations de pistes de solutions. Les pistes de solutions, elles peuvent vraiment être complètement out of the box, ça, c'est correct. Par contre, on veut que ça soit quelque chose comme Paola was, for example, recommending this morning we think of a new political system. That's thinking out of the box. It's concrete, though. I mean, we can achieve a different political system. It's not unseen of in history. Donc, dans les questions, vous allez faire des recommandations et les recommandations que vous faites sont synthétisées, sont summarized, et puis elles sont publiées. L'année passée, elles ont été publiées par une revue qui s'appelle Options politiques, Policy Options, qui est un magazine en politique publique de l'Institut de recherche en politique publique, c'est canadien, c'est lu à travers le monde. Les recommandations ont été aussi transmises aux Nations Unies, à différentes conférences auxquelles j'assiste. Donc, vos voix sont synthétisées et elles sont publiées et je les porte à différents paliers, soit au niveau national, international. Donc, vraiment, si vous venez comme peu importe votre expertise, là, on est des groupes multidisciplinaires ici aujourd'hui, amenez ce que vous voyez comme une solution. Si c'est du financement, c'est du financement. Si c'est d'utiliser, d'atteindre une plus grande compréhension de certains enjeux, OK, mais si on est encore un petit peu dans le vague, la personne va dire, bien, comment? Là, je voudrais avoir un programme en éducation qui pense à partir du niveau primaire. Alors, j'ai une fois pour aller dans le concret, on pense 0,5 ans. On n'est pas dans le super intelligence dans 25 ans de peut-être. On va essayer de penser aux 0,5 ans. Comment est-ce qu'on peut faire pour avoir une IA qui est équitable, accessible à tous? Et pour les 2 jours, pour aujourd'hui tout particulièrement, on va être concentré dans le domaine du travail et de l'éducation que ça prend pour arriver là. Là, je pense que j'ai pas mal réussi à avoir l'attention de tout le monde. Donc, j'ai-tu mes boîtes à lunch comiques? Ah, cool! OK. OK, là, je vais vous poser des questions pièges, mais il faut que je me rappelle d'une question. C'est parce que j'ai des super boîtes à lunch qui vont avec la musique, là, voyez-vous bien? C'est Yu-Gi-Oh, tu sais. Fait que là, je me suis dit, écoute, c'est comme la boîte à lunch parfaite. OK. Est-ce que j'ai une start-up dans la salle qui connaît le nom de l'organisme qui présente cette conférence? Alors, il faut lever la main. Hey, come on! C'est qui organise les missions sociales? AIIA, c'est qui a répondu? AIIA, c'est correct en français aussi, je vous accepte, là. Je fais des jokes. C'est qui a répondu? Yay! T'as gagné une boîte à lunch. Faut que tu viennes la chercher. Félicitations. Bon appétit. Il n'y a rien dedans, par exemple. J'espère que tu as mangé tantôt. Okay. I would now like to welcome a very special guest. And I can explain why. I talk about this guy so much when I do different talks that I don't know if I'm repeating myself. Milan Tambe is visiting us today from LA. He's the co-founder, co-director of the Center for AI and Society at University of Southern California. I contacted Milan originally because I found that he had brought together the engineering faculty with the social work faculty. Who can tell me what percentage of women are at MILA AI Research Institute now in 2019? 5%. There's 5% women in AI at MILA here in Montreal. How many women are in the broadly defined social sector in Canada? Thank you, 67%. Someone's been reading stuff. So I thought, wow, this is just genius, pure genius, to bring together the engineering AI faculty with the social work faculty. And then they work together with civil society organizations. Well, I can tell you one thing. The only thing that comes out of that organization is AI for Social Good, and I'm extremely proud to welcome and present Milan Tambe. That one's good?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Hello. Well, thank you. That was an extremely kind and generous introduction. And thank you all for coming for this post-lunch session. So I'm going to be talking about using AI for social good in this end-to-end pipeline, doing planning and learning in this end-to-end pipeline. And so with the tremendous advances that we've made in AI and multi-agent systems, it is now important to direct these advances towards societal benefits. We have focused on 3 areas: public safety and security, conservation, and public health. Viewing these societal problems as multi-agent systems, there's a key research challenge that can be seen to cut across these challenges: how to optimize our limited intervention resources when interacting with other agents in these domains. And I'll focus on 2 ideas: the use of computational game theory and the idea that we want to build this end-to-end data to deployment pipeline. So with respect to public safety and security, a topic I will not focus on today, the challenge is that we have a large number of targets to protect limited security resources, how to schedule or plan or allocate these resources, taking into account a watchful adversary. We've contributed a new model called Stackelberg Security Games, developed new algorithms that have been in use by security agencies in the United States and internationally. With respect to conservation, the challenge is that we have large conservation areas to protect, limited number of ranger resources. We've contributed a new model called Green Security Games. A concrete example is work we've been doing in Uganda with Uganda Wildlife Authority and Wildlife Conservation Society. Harnessing past poaching data, we are able to predict where poachers will set snares or traps. And for the past several years, we've been able to remove a large number of snares and even get poachers arrested. The model is being extended to combat illegal fishing and illegal logging. With respect to public health, the challenge is that we have limited number of social worker resources. So concrete example of work here is work we've been doing in homeless shelters in Los Angeles. Harnessing the social network of homeless youth, we are able to show that our AI algorithms are far more effective in spreading information about HIV compared to traditional approaches. These algorithms are based on this idea of games against nature, and we are extending these ideas towards combating tuberculosis and other public health challenges. So in all of this work, partnerships with governmental and non-governmental organizations are crucial. And to that end, we have really patrolled with wildlife conservation agencies in forests, such as in Malaysia. Our students have spent time in homeless shelters, talking to homeless shelter officials, or visited primary healthcare centers in India. This immersion is important in order for us to collect the right kind of data. From here, a predictive model, machine learning or expert input is used in order to make predictions about high versus low risk cases. Following that, a prescriptive phase, for example, game theoretic intervention, then decides which cases to actually intervene on, because we can't intervene on everything. What's also important to us is the idea of field testing and deploying our algorithms, not only because we care deeply about the societal impact, but because this is a way we can actually validate and test our assumptions and make changes to our models and algorithms. So in the rest of this presentation, I'll start by talking about public health and then conservation, and I guess that's going to be the end of the talk, and I'll listen to your questions. So let's start with public health. In Los Angeles, homelessness is a major crisis. We have 6,000 homeless youth who sleep on our streets every night. HIV is a major challenge. The rates of HIV amongst homeless youth are 10 times the rate of normal housed populations. So homeless shelters run these public health campaigns by selecting peer leaders who are educated about HIV, and the idea is that then they'll talk to their friends, and their friends will talk to their friends, and information will spread about HIV, because we don't have enough social workers to talk to every single homeless youth. Notice that this is face-to-face, this is actual conversation, this is not Facebook, because these youth don't have access to computing resources, so this is all face-to-face conversations. So this in computer science is called the problem of influence maximization. We are given some social network graph G, and we are trying to select some K peer leaders so as to maximize the influence spread. So we want to educate a few homeless youth such that information about HIV will spread in the homeless youth population through the social network. Now, information is assumed to spread through this independent cascade model. So for example, if you inform youth A about HIV, then there's certain probability that his or her friend, youth B, will be informed about HIV. For example, the probability shown here is 0.4. Of course, immersion in this domain showed us that this probability is really difficult to find, and so we have to model the uncertainty. So how can we algorithmically select the right youth to choose to educate them about HIV. We cast the problem as a game against nature, where we are trying to select K youth to inform about HIV, and nature is going to try to choose probabilities so as to cause our algorithm to perform as worse as possible. So we try to come up with policies that perform well no matter what nature does in terms of trying to make these probabilities to get our algorithm to perform very badly. All right, so to test these algorithms in the field, we've tested with 170 homeless youth in our initial pilot tests. We recruited 60 each under 2 versions of Healer. Healer is our algorithm, the name of our algorithm, so we recruited 60 in 2 different versions of Healer, and then roughly the same amount in this degree centrality, recruit the most popular youth. This is the traditional approach, how these homeless shelters spread the message. Bring in the most popular youth, educate them, and hope the message spreads. So 12 of these youth were selected as peer leaders in each of these cases, and our social work colleagues then educated them about HIV. And the question is, which approach would lead to more spread of HIV information? And we are particularly interested in the non-peer leaders, because we already talked to the peer leaders, so we are trying to figure out how many of the non-peer leaders got educated about HIV. And what we find is that with our Healer algorithms, 75% of the non-peer leaders got educated about HIV. So after 1 month, you ask them about HIV, 75% of the non-peer leaders got informed, but with degree centrality, the traditional approach of bringing in the most popular youth, only 25% of the non-peer leaders got informed. So AI algorithms are far more effective in spreading HIV information. Okay, so they spread more information. Did they actually lead to changes in behavior? And it turns out that among those who got informed with the AI algorithms, 35 to 40% actually started testing for HIV, but among those who got informed about by the traditional approach, nobody started testing for HIV, and this is in part because the number of people who got informed itself is very small. So this shows the effectiveness of using AI to select the right kinds of peer leaders. So we want to take this algorithmic approach and take it to other cities, maybe San Francisco, New York, and so forth. But there's one bottleneck, which is data collection. So the way things work in Los Angeles is our colleagues, social workers, sit in homeless shelters. They do surveys. They do field observations, which youth is talking to which youth, and use that to generate a social network. Of course, if we want to take it out to other cities, this is not scalable. So the question is, can we sample a small fraction of the social network and still do well? So we developed a new algorithm intelligently sampling just 18% of the network, and then selecting peer leaders based on just a small fraction of this, as shown here, this network. And the question is, how will it perform in the field? Again, we recruited 60 youth in Los Angeles. We sampled 18% of their network using our algorithm, again selected 12 peer leaders, and then checked how many got informed about HIV. And the answer is that even though we sampled only 18% of the network, we're still able to achieve same spread of HIV information and same changes in behavior as with knowing the entire network. So even though we knew only a small fraction of the network, we are just as effective. And this gives us hope that these algorithms can now be taken to other cities and deployed elsewhere. And our partners are very happy with these results, as you will see.
Beautiful way to kind of like marry this tech world with this social service world, like, and how we can kind of go deeper and impact young people and elevate them.
If this group became a really big thing, it could really help out a lot of youth.
So we are conducting tests with 900 homeless youth in 3 different homeless shelters in Los Angeles, and the results will be out later this year. Let me now switch topics and talk about tuberculosis, which is a problem not only in Los Angeles, but also around the world. I'm talking about preventing tuberculosis in India, where 500,000 people die every year due to tuberculosis. 3 million people get infected. It's huge loss to economy and so on. We're particularly focused on low-resource communities where non-adherence is a problem. So TB requires that these patients take medicines for 6 months, but it could be that after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, after a month, they drop off. And that's not only a problem for their own health, but it's a problem globally because now you've created drug-resistant bacteria. And so we need to somehow get them to take their pills. So around the world now, there is this idea of digital adherence technology. So on the pill packs are phone numbers. You open a pill, and there's a phone number, and a patient is supposed to call that phone number. And so by looking at the calling, whether a patient has called or not, health workers, government officials can figure out if a person is taking their pills daily or not. Because if they didn't call, say for several days somebody didn't call, now you know they haven't been taking their pills, and social workers can go to their home and say, hey, you really need to take your pills. Of course, that's too late. They have already not taken their pills for several days. So the challenge for us is, can we predict ahead of time who is at risk of dropping off and get social workers to pay more attention to them? Because each social worker has a caseload of 125 patients. There is no way they can go call them every day or go visit them every day. So we need to prioritize. So can we predict in advance who these patients are? So we have been doing this work jointly with Everwell, which is an NGO, and with Microsoft Research India. This is from our trip just a couple of weeks ago to India, to Mumbai. This is working with there's a photograph of a doctor there and the TB Control Center. And so Everwell collaborates on software that serves millions of patients in India and around the world. And so the challenge is something like this. Supposing this is the dashboard a health worker sees. Patient 6204 didn't call on day 1, but called on other days. Patient 6214 didn't call on day 4 and day 7, but called on other days. And given this, can we predict that it's patient 6214 who's going to drop off of treatment? And that's the patient health workers should really concentrate on, of course, before they drop off of all this taking them pills. So that's the problem we have focused on. And so we've got data of 15,000 patients, 1.5 million calls from the state of Maharashtra in India. So with our predictive model, we are trying to predict, for example, in this example of 4 patients, patient 1 didn't call on day 1, called on other days. Patient 2 didn't call on day 3 and day 5, called on other days. And we want to predict that patient 2 and 4 are the high-risk patients. Other patients, don't worry about them. They're going to take their pills on time. And so after making this prediction, we, of course, want to prescribe which patients to actually intervene on, because you can't go to the homes of all the high-risk patients because there's just too many, the travel distances, time is limited, and so on. So just focusing on the predictive phase, using our LSTMs or random forests, we are able to show that we can indeed increase the accuracy with which we identify high-risk patients compared to the traditional approach. The traditional approach, which is currently used by Everwell, is to say, if a patient didn't take a pill for twice in the last week, that's a high-risk patient. But we are able to identify other patterns as a result of which we can more accurately identify high-risk patients. So true positive rate goes up by 35%, false positive reduces. Of course, this is prediction, but we also want to prescribe which patients to focus on. If we take that into account, then in fact we can increase the intervention rate even higher. So co-founder of Everwell, Bill Thies, points out that this work has a lot of potential to save lives, and we are really working with them to try to integrate our machine learning approaches into their software so that this can be immediately useful to the health workers in Mumbai. So these are just 2 of the projects. There are many projects we have been doing at our center. North of Los Angeles is this low-resource community, Antelope Valley, where a big challenge is children who suffer from malnutrition and diabetes and so forth. So can we change their eating habits by working on the social networks of their mothers, getting different mothers to cook together? Suicide prevention using social networks. Substance abuse prevention. These are many challenges. So when the mayor of Los Angeles came to our university, USC, and talked about the moral and humanitarian crisis we are facing in our city with our homeless population and with the low-resource communities, we are really very grateful that with AI, as an Angelino, I feel very grateful that I can contribute back to my city. On the other side of the world, I grew up in the city of Mumbai in India. I was very honored to sign a memorandum of understanding with the government of Maharashtra in the capital, Mumbai, to use AI for societal benefit. And this is in the presence of the chief minister of the state. And that's what we've been doing with the tuberculosis prevention work. So let me now switch to wildlife conservation as the next topic. So let's begin by thinking about what we are fighting for. This is Murchison Falls National Park in Uganda. These are my photographs of animals. They're magnificent wildlife, but there's threats to the wildlife. Traps or snares that get set to maim and kill animals. These are designed to crush bones. And so there's thousands of these snares that get set every year. So the question for us, because there's limited numbers of rangers, is can we predict which 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid square in the thousands and thousands of kilometers of the park poachers may set snares. So if we can accurately predict these probabilities, then we can get rangers to focus on those grid cells where there are snares that are set. And so we have 12 years of poaching data from Uganda with respect to ranger patrol frequency in each grid square, animal density, distance to roads and rivers, and so on. And given this, can we predict there are snares that are being set? There are many challenges here. I'm not going to go into them, but just jump into the results. So the first test we did in 2016 is to predict 2 9 square kilometer areas which were infrequently patrolled, were not previous hotspots. So we have selected these green dot areas where we are asking them to patrol, and they don't overlap with the red dots where previously snares have been found. So we are not asking rangers just go back to where you have found snares, but instead go to these new areas. You haven't patrolled them as much. You're going to find snares. And we did this before 1 month before a conference deadline. So if we find snares, we're going to be able to write a paper. If no, then there's going to be no paper. And we sent rangers out on patrols, and they would every day send us an email as to what happened. Initially, there were no results, but then a report of a poached elephant with its tusks cut off. So the machine learning system was pointing the rangers in the right place, except that we were too late for this elephant. But then, good news, a whole elephant snare roll was found and removed. So poachers were active in this area. They were killing elephants, but before they could kill the next set of elephants, we were able to remove this snare roll, potentially saving lives of elephants. And then antelope snares were removed. Our papers describe our hit rate compared to the base hit rate and so on. So this was very encouraging to our partners, Wildlife Conservation Society and Uganda Wildlife Authority. But one criticism was, this is Uganda. If you go to a national park and go to a place where it hasn't been patrolled before, chances are you're going to find snares. To combat that criticism, we came up with a different experiment. For 6 months in 2 national parks in Uganda, we identified 24 areas, not infrequently patrolled areas, predicted some of them are high risk and some of them are low risk. High risk, you're going to find more snares. Low risk, you're not going to find many snares. And we sent rangers out. They didn't know which areas our machine learning algorithms had identified as high risk or low risk, or predicted to be high risk and low risk. They went out, patrolled. Question is, what happened? And indeed, where we predicted high risk, more snares were found. Where we predicted low risk, less snares were found. And this is now in Murchison Falls also. Our predictions worked out well. So this has given a lot of confidence to our partners that this is a technology that can be deployed to many other countries. But it is my belief that it is really important to keep stress testing our algorithms. And to that end, recently we have started working with the World Wildlife Fund in the Sripak National Park in Cambodia. So these are my pictures from a visit there a month ago. This gentleman was a former Khmer Rouge soldier who became a ranger. And we worked with the rangers there, and we made predictions again about high risk and low risk areas and sent them out on patrol. And indeed, where we predicted high risk, more snares were found. In fact, the rate of capture of snares, these traps, has jumped 5-fold from 2018 to 2019 once our work started getting deployed. So the head of WWF in Cambodia was saying, I'm super excited with the results. Let's get going to other countries too this year. So I'll end here by one final piece of work that I'll describe with Air Shepherd, which is an NGO that flies drones in South Africa and Botswana. So they take infrared videos. They beam them to a van where a human being is sitting, looking at the infrared video, trying to identify poachers. You can see from the blurry pictures there, it's not so easy to identify where the poachers in those pictures. Imagine a human being sitting late at night trying to see where's the poacher and then calling a ranger. It's very difficult. And so we've built taking advantage of the recent advances in computer vision, a program called Spot that tries to automatically detect poachers, and then we have our colleagues then calling rangers to interdict them. So with the advances that we've made in predicting where poachers will strike, with Spot to detect poachers. We're now collaborating with Microsoft's AI for Earth and SMART, which is a partnership of WWF, WCS, and other wildlife conservation societies, to bring all our techniques to be available to all the different conservation agencies around the world. In fact, to make it available to 600 national parks around the world. And this work has been moving forward, and hopefully we will start seeing results starting this year. And we are extending this work towards protecting forests and fisheries and so on. So I'll end here by saying that I see AI as having tremendous potential for improving society and fighting social injustice. But for that, we really need to bring AI to those who have not benefited from it, such as in the Global South, and to embrace interdisciplinary research. We are AI researchers. It's really important to work with social workers and with conservation scientists and public health officials and many others in order to make this happen. And for AI researchers in particular, I feel it is important, if you're working for AI for society, to step out of the lab, go to the field, test your algorithms in the field. That's the way you can really detect problems in our assumptions and models and improve things. And of course, we are keenly interested in actually making an impact in society. So I'll say that what's been inspiring for us is the partnerships with all the governmental and non-governmental organizations, seeing the Coast Guardsmen who are out there, or rangers who are truly risking their lives to protect wildlife, or social workers, whether they're in Los Angeles or Mumbai, going out there at risk to themselves, going to TB patients' homes where the social worker himself or herself is exposing themselves to risk of catching TB and still doing their work. It's really inspiring to see that, and that's been inspiring us in our work forward. So thank you for listening, and I'll be happy to take any questions at this point.
Qui voudrait lui?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very inspirational listening to you.
Thank you.
I have a question which is going to reflect my ignorance. If we step back to the Uganda story, I understand the drones and how the drones can spot, but I can't fully grasp how AI is able to predict. Is it frequency? We predict the placing of snares. Is it frequency that?
So
I just don't understand that. If you could perhaps explain it, please.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. So the thing is that what the machine learning algorithm is trying to figure out is what is the pattern of where traps are being set. So given thousands of square kilometers and underfunding of rangers, you can only patrol maybe 10%, 20% of the national park in a given year. So if you go and patrol those areas, you may find that the snares typically get placed 2 kilometers away from the boundary, 1.5 kilometers away from a river, with a certain slope of the land, with a certain shade of the trees, and so on and so on. So it's identifying what is that pattern, and then once it figures that out, then it says, well, every other spot in the park which has the similar characteristic, there's a high chance that a snare would be placed. And so that's how it's going from the 10% of the areas it patrolled to the remaining 90% and saying, if these characteristics exist, that's a high-risk area. This is where poachers are going to set snares. Does that make sense?
Question?
Thank you. My question is a simple one. Can the technology be applied to crime prevention in urban area?
That's a very, very important question. Some of my colleagues are certainly working on it. We have been very careful with that area. This is because police data is definitely not complete, it's biased and so forth. So we've been very careful. I mean, clearly wildlife crime, you could imagine going to urban crime. But in urban crime, we want to first tackle the challenge of fairness, bias, ethics, before actually going off and saying, well, here blindly, let's apply this to predicting crime. So we are cautiously approaching that problem. But I think before we really, clearly there are other researchers who are doing this work, but just speaking for ourselves, we want to first truly focus on the question of bias in crime data before trying to push that angle forward.
Milind, we have been using predictor models forever.
Yes.
Since I was a PhD student, and that's a very long time ago. Some have worked well, some have not worked well. More recently, we've been using agent-based modeling in complexity systems and so on. What is not coming out clear to me, and maybe you can help us understand better, is what is the value added of AI here compared to traditional predictor models, which might have worked easily or just as well? How do we know that AI has added value here?
No, that's an excellent question. So I didn't show you results here of very simple predictor models or even earlier AI approaches. What's happened is that we all know that there's a lot more data, there's a lot more computation power, but these AI algorithms are, just take the example of random forest, for example. If you try to fit things into normal regression, linear logistic regression type things, that they're not able to capture the kinds of nonlinear relationships that may exist with that random forest may be able to capture. So sometimes I find my social work colleagues coming to me and saying, well, this is a logistical regression. Basically, this is a predictor model I had been working on. And then I say, well, that's a predictor model we in machine learning also work on. It's just that now we have many more predictor models. So, the advent of deep neural networks, for example, I mean, they were there, but now we can really run them and see benefits of them. So it's not to say that other disciplines, as in social work, haven't been doing this kind of predictor models. It's just that now with AI, we have different ones, more powerful ones, I would say. And therefore, with more data and more computation, we are able to make more accurate predictions than somewhat standard models used in some of the other some of the other disciplines that my collaborators have worked on. So, but I don't know exactly which predictor models you have been working on, so it could be that there's there's some difference there.
Thank you. I think that, I'm sorry, that's all. One last one. Quick question.
Nice presentation, thank you. Did you have to develop new algorithms, or did you use algorithms that already existed?
We have, for example, in the case of wildlife prediction, have to develop newer techniques. This is basically because the data is positive and unlabeled. What I mean by that is when we find a snare, there is a snare. But when the rangers say there was no trap or snare found in a grid square, we can't be sure. If they just had walked a little bit more or turned over some more leaves, they could have found a snare. And so as a result, we have positive and unlabeled data set. And it has some special characteristics, and therefore we have to exploit the special characteristics of this data in order to develop more specialized algorithms. And this is true of all of the different results I showed. So influence maximization, spreading information in social networks. Our networks have special characteristics, and so we have to develop newer algorithms. And so in all of these cases, I didn't have time to really get into all of the technical advances, but there are technical advances that are lying underneath. So in the case of wildlife prediction, yes, these are supervised algorithms, but as I said, it's positive and unlabeled data set. It's not positive and negative. Unlabeled meaning when there is when somebody says, I couldn't find a snare, you can't say, well, there was no snare there. You can only say, we don't know. And so that's where some of the interesting developments have to take place.
I could listen to Milind all afternoon.
Oh, thank you.
How about you? Please thank Milind.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. OK. Vous allez vous demander qu'est-ce que je fais avec un chaudron. Là? Mais j'ai amené mon chaudron, puis on a une petite cuillère. Fait que là, on va faire du AI for Social Good. Il y a plusieurs petits ingrédients que ça prend pour en faire. Moi, je me fais déjà des fois demander est-ce que du AI for Bad, ça n'existe pas? Je suis pas d'accord. Fait qu'aujourd'hui, j'ai invité, Hiba peut s'approcher. Hiba, c'est une des bénévoles. Je ne sais pas, je vais juste préciser rapidement, AIIA in a Social Mission, IA en mission sociale, c'est organisé par AIIA. C'est propulsé grâce à l'énergie, la volonté, la passion de nos bénévoles. Alors, Hiba est une des bénévoles de notre équipe. Et puis, je voudrais avoir juste une petite main d'applaudissement rapide pour mes bénévoles qui travaillent fort. Et j'ai demandé à Hiba, c'est une femme en AI, c'est une rareté, hein? Alors on se les arrache. Hiba, c'est une perle, je l'ai invitée à animer le panel qui va aider à mettre des ingrédients ici. Alors, Hiba va nous concocter avec ses panélistes qu'est-ce que c'est du AI for Good. Et puis, j'en profite rapidement pour remercier, je prends ma pause publicitaire, là, pour remercier nos partenaires, Strategy, AI, merci beaucoup pour votre soutien, on apprécie beaucoup. Le CHUM a une nouvelle école en intelligence artificielle dans le domaine de la santé. Ce matin, il y avait un autre workshop en même temps qu'ici qui se passait. On jonglait une couple d'affaires et puis il y a Virginia Dignam, Mylène Tambe et Giuliano Viana qui ont accepté de donner de leur temps pour aider à soutenir IA en mission sociale. Alors, merci au CHUM et puis merci à nos 3 experts qui ont donné de leur temps aujourd'hui. On remercie le MILA, tout particulièrement Yesha Benjo, qui nous a soutenus à l'origine. C'est comme une espèce de partner fondateur. Le laboratoire de cyberjustice, on va entendre Valentin tantôt. On a entendu Karim Benyeklev ce matin. Merci beaucoup à Cyberjustice. Merci à Quadbridge, grâce à qui vous allez pouvoir avoir un verre ce soir pendant le cocktail. Sinon, je vous aurais fait sécher. Non, c'est une joke. La Cédrin. Qui connaît la Cédrin? Yay! Isabelle va nous en parler un petit peu demain. La Cédrin, c'est à Matane, c'est le centre de recherche en intelligence numérique. Il y a la CRDI, grâce à qui on a la présence de Kathleen Semignou, qui est ici, que vous allez pouvoir entendre dans le panel dans pas trop longtemps. Et Paola Ricote, non, je ne vais jamais être capable. Donc, c'est grâce à la CRDI si on a pu pouvoir profiter de leur présence, leur expertise. On remercie aussi NextAI, avec plusieurs startups qui vont être présentées, les presses de l'Université Laval, Kunumi, Cyrano, merci beaucoup, et l'Observatoire international sur les impacts sociétaux de l'IA et du numérique. Merci infiniment à tous nos partenaires. Et maintenant, Hiba.
So, is it working? Yeah. See, okay, good. So, hello everybody, I'm Carolina. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at the Strategy AI. I'm very happy being here, especially because sometimes I'm a researcher. I work in different areas of expertise. I direct projects, all of them very focused on the enterprises. And it's great to see different perspectives here, so I'm super happy being here in this panel. My main interest right now in terms of research is in interpretability, is how we can make, especially deep learning interpretability, how we can make the decisions taken by these machine learning algorithms explainable, how we can give explanations to humans in a way that humans trust more in the decisions taken. That's me.
Thank you, Carolina. So we have a great panelist, so let's welcome our second panelist, Philippe Baudouin from Adherence AI. So we will talk about ingredients of
Yes, so I'm Philippe. I'm the VP of Research at Element AI and one of the co-founders there. I work on many aspects of research, in particular robotics, vision, time series. At least my teams do. I don't do that much myself. And I'm also in charge of a group called the AI for Good group in London, UK. This is where it's based now. And I'm hoping to talk about this a bit more during the panel, the kind of initiatives that we do. And, you know, I think it's very much connected to the talk we just heard, where we said basically there are a bunch of organisms throughout the world that don't necessarily have access to the technical and the scientific advances of AI these days, and we're basically trying to bridge that gap a little. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Now let's welcome Kate from Africa is Talking and many more.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathleen. My background is in math and computer science, which is how I somewhat providentially found myself in data science. I work for a company called Africa's Talking. I'm head of data science at Africa's Talking. And outside of that, I co-organize a community for women in machine learning and data science. This came about basically just because when I started working as a data scientist, I was very inexperienced. So I was in search of a community to support my learning journey, but there was none. So that's kind of how I ended up organizing this community. And then along that journey, I also got involved with another initiative called the Deep Learning Indaba, whose aim is to strengthen machine learning in Africa. So whereas the local community organizes grassroots, the Indaba deals with just figuring out how we can support these initiatives across the African continent and basically just strengthen them to do what they do in the particular context. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Hiba, I think you don't need to sit down if you don't mind standing for a little bit because we are cooking, right? So I'm going to be bringing a little piece of paper and pencil. So as you are talking, I'm going to be like taking notes. So it's kind of like a cooking session, okay? So I'm sorry I'm going to keep you standing up. Thank you. Now let's welcome Giuliano Vianney from Kunumi.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Giuliano. I'm from Kunumi. We are a Brazilian company. We work with enterprises and also with NGOs in providing them AI expertise in order to solve the problems. My own background is in computer science. In the more traditional software engineering, AI is something kind of new in my career. I started working with AI a couple of years ago. And I fell in love with the subject. At Kunumi, we work a lot with big enterprises, but we also like to work with in problems that there is no immediate commercial value. So we also do a lot of work on some kind of moonshot projects, like Alzheimer's disease prediction, or working with the public healthcare system in Brazil in order to enable predictive models to enable better optimization of resources. So for me, it's very interesting to come here and see a lot of people who are also interested in the kind of application of AI as we are interested at Kunumi.
I have some slide. It's going to be great because it's going to be a good recipe. Okay, this is a quick. Where is the clicker? So is this one? Oh, yeah, okay. And I'm pointing to you? Okay. So they asked me 3 minutes, so that's what I'm going to try to do, presenting me, the lab, and 2 projects. But since the first question and the 2 projects are young and older person, and since your first question is a bit about me and my path, so that part is just there, and I will answer you more deeply. So that part for the moment is done, but I will come back to that in a moment with your first question. And after that, there's my lab, which is the LINCS, the Laboratory of Engineering and Cognition and Semantics. So those are the people of the lab. So this is done. All right. Valentin knows that I'm going fast when I'm asked for, right? But yeah, the lab is more than that. So this is the LINCS, and this is all our partner at the bottom. University of Mexico, University of Charlotte in California, and North Carolina, sorry. Medical University of South Carolina, Psychiatric Hospital in Mexico, the CRIM, University of Quebec in Ottawa, Potsdam in Germany, and AIIA in Netherlands. We have right now 6 PhD, 4 master students, 3 blah blah, and various interns, and one website that I don't have the time to update, so if you have any question, you talk to me. Yeah. We're analyzing text, documents, videos, images, speech signals, and transcription of conversation in 3 domains, in health and education and in society. And mostly now it's in health and education. So the first project is about the follow-up of young offenders. Last year I presented that in really much details. And there's an evaluation of a young offender at the beginning. There's some evaluation that is done. There's a sentencing that is done. There's some intervention plan that is proposed. And then one person or supervisor is talking to the kid and through time, and is producing a lot of little reports and short reports. And we are analyzing that. That's where we're coming in. We're analyzing that with NLP technique and AI, and to produce a synthesis of those interventions to see if they're accurate and they're good, and how can they change their way of doing things. So a lot of ethics there, a lot of sensible data. I will have the occasion to speak about it. Detecting and monitoring Alzheimer's disease and other kind of dementia. We are examining 2 contexts. The first context are spontaneous conversation with people, with caregivers, and the other context is cognitive testing. This is one of the images that is often used for testing, is the cookie theft. And we are analyzing 2 aspects. The first one is the transcription of what the people are saying, so linguistic analysis there, and also the facial expression of the person, the gaze, and their gesturing in relationship with what they're saying. So the sub-goal here is there 2, the multimodal fusion of all those signals, and also to augment collections, because the collections right now, most of them are in English, some of them are in French, but we've been working a lot to augment that for Spanish. And now I will throw at you some results. So this is for cognitive testing, LT versus AD, LT versus AD plus MCI. MCI is mild cognitive impairment. It's one of the first steps before AD. And LT versus MCI. Sorry? Yeah. But I would like to show that, because this is spontaneous conversation that we've been doing in French. And this is an LT person over a span of 2012 to 2002 to 2015. There's been 3 conversations. And this is somebody that developed in 2012, just somewhere there, Alzheimer. And we can see that for those, there's a change in those graphs. I can go into more detail, and that's it.
Or you can switch. It's okay.
Well, for me, I have some questions for you, Carolina. As a valuable scientist and the co-founder of Strategy AI, you are a role model to many women, and that's undeniable. How do you view this role as we look at the percentage of women in AI, plus the new generation of women into considering this discipline and addressing gender inequality?
Okay. Well, this is a question that really is a very common question everywhere. Is okay. Valentin mentioned today, MILA. 5% of the members of MILA is a woman. In my own lab, I'm a woman directing the lab, and only 27% are women. So the question here is why? Why this is happening? Because when we understand the reason, we can also find a solution. And there are two main reasons from my point of view. One is that since we're little girls, we're never encouraged on thinking on sciences as something that we can really do. That is in our list of choices. I read an article, I think last week, that was saying that boys have 300% more probability of getting a gift associated with sciences than a woman. And this impacts because, for example, when I was like 10 years old, I got like a chemistry lab thing that my parents gave me. Maybe that marked my future, and maybe that helped me to think that science is an option. So this is one thing, is education. Education since you are a little girl. But there is a second aspect, and it's something I have seen in a lot of cases. Women, we are more humble. We are more afraid of applying to jobs if we don't fulfill everything that is in the list of the. But I have seen that, and I have interviewed a lot of people, and men in general are more risky. And this risk is a good thing because that allows them to enter into doors that maybe women might think that are closed. So what we can do? And I was thinking, okay, this is AI in social mission. So what we can do with AI. So I'm going to give you an example of, I read an article, a scientific paper. Somebody did the following experiment. They took job descriptions done by people and tried to identify which adjectives that were there were more masculine than feminine. And I'm not talking about the gender itself of the adjective. I'm talking about the characteristic. For example, when you say, I want somebody with a strong character. So this strong is something that is more associated with male than with female. So what they did is they created this AI system that was able to identify that and was able to change those adjectives for something that was a little bit more gender neutral. And the results were impressive. They increased something like 30 or 40% the amount of women that were applying to those jobs. So we can use AI, additional to be giving talks and be role models and help parents understand how to educate little girls. But also we can use AI now to try to help encourage women to apply to jobs that maybe they will be afraid to apply if not. Yeah.
Still in the same way, AI latest research with Amnesty International evaluated women's cybersecurity, harassment, and abuse in politics and journalism. Maybe you could tell us more about the finding, and moreover, how can AI be positively used into measuring social well-being?
Yeah. So just maybe a bit of context. How did we get there? You know, this is this working? Yeah. So essentially, there's a group within Element AI that looks at ways we can use AI in places that it wouldn't find itself naturally. And to do that, we collaborate with different organizations. And one of these collaborations was with Amnesty International. And Amnesty International, like a lot of NGOs and a lot of people out there from civil society, from you and I, care about the impact of social media on democracy, the impact of social media on who's taking his voice out there, their voice out there. See, I used his here, right? This is my bias. So their voice out there. And one thing that was clear is that women, and in particular women journalists and politicians, were being harassed online or bullied even online a lot more than others. But at the same time, a lot of social media companies out there were saying, well, there's nothing we can do about it, free speech, blah, blah, blah. So what we did is we worked from the Twitter fire hose, and first we identified 800 women, journalists and politicians, that would potentially be the target of these harassment tweets. And from the Twitter fire hose, we identified that there were 15 million tweets a year. In 2017, they received 15 million tweets. We took 2 million of these and then went out to the crowd. Amnesty International has a super interesting platform called Decoders, where they take, basically they try to get together a bunch of people who care about these questions and ask them to help on some research. And what they did there is that they labeled 300,000 of these tweets as being harassment or not. This is exactly the seed for the kind of natural language processing algorithm we can develop. So we worked from these labeled data sets, and we deployed a lot of techniques. It's not trivial, right? It's not trivial, but it can be done. And in the end, we had a system that was able to take any tweet and say whether it was harassment or not, with some degree of precision, naturally, but good enough that we can get to an approximate number. And what we saw is 7.1% of the tweets these women received in a year were harassment tweets. So out of these 800 women, they received a harassment tweet every 30 seconds. So that's quite a bit. And what's even more interesting is the impact this research has had. Because, okay, we work with Amnesty, but Amnesty has a lot of media presence out there. They published this. It became their biggest news of the year in December last year, okay? And it had a huge impact on Twitter itself, right? And so you can see that through these means, we can put pressure at the places where it matters. And after that, we can be sure to, well, we can do two things. We can tell Twitter, well, it's actually possible to do that with some degree of precision. And second, as Trooper was mentioning this morning, this has impact on your shareholders. This has impact on the money you have. So you have to take that into consideration and act on it. So this was the result.
Okay, now I want to go to Caitlin. You are the co-founder of Women in Machine Learning and Data Science in Nairobi. I want to ask you, how does this organization allow women to participate in the development of AI application? And how does the deep learning and data work to strengthen these grassroots efforts across the African continent?
So the Women in Machine Learning and Data Science organization, which I'll shorten to WIMLS, basically is just a community. We create a space that's filling a gap, and the gap is the fact that there's a lot of demand for data science and machine learning skills, but then the education systems cannot meet this demand. So what we have is a space where mostly university students and people in software engineering or economics or math fields come and they want to port into data science. So we just create a space and we have a bunch of activities. We have monthly meetups where we invite professionals to come and talk about their work or to carry out trainings. We have hackathons where we collaborate with companies. They give us their data and then we hack on it and give them a solution to a problem or a question that they set. We organize quarterly study groups, quarterly study groups. So guys come together and maybe you're interested in Python for NLP, or you're interested in R, getting into R for data science. So for 3 months or 4 months, you go through a course or go through a book with a bunch of people who can support your learning journey, and then at the end of it, you graduate to some other thing. And then also we do a bunch of open source projects, which I'll talk about a little later. So it really is just a community, and in as much as we are branded for women, we are open to everyone. But we have found that being branded women in machine learning and data science is a powerful signal to women that this is a space for them. So we've seen very interesting things over the years. We've been at it for about 2 years. And on a Saturday morning, a woman will feel comfortable enough to come with her kid because there was no one at home to watch them, just because this is a space for women. So they feel like, yeah, it's okay that I do this, other women will understand. These things happen. And also, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Yeah.
That's Stephen. Do you have any thought? Did you come back or not?
Okay, I was going to to move on to the deep learning in Daba. So I remembered where I actually was. So in as much as we're open to everyone, we do very little things to keep women engaged. When we started out, we noticed that even though it's a space for women, we had more men. And it's not surprising because this is tech, so the men are there anyway. And I'm always saying this, we get a lot of backlash because we are branded women, and for a long time we were the only space in machine learning and data science in Nairobi. So people would be like, oh, but why women? You guys are always just doing things for women. But the thing is, the men are already there. They'll come even though it's a space for women. So we got into doing... We got into doing little things to just keep women engaged. So if we run a cohort of a study group for R, for the next cohort, we'll ask a woman from the current cohort to run it, yeah? So we've opened it up to everyone. Everyone has come and gained the skill, but then when it comes to the next iteration, we ask a woman if she'd like to facilitate it. So just giving women some responsibilities in the community has enabled us to just retain people on this journey, because initially we'd find women who come and they find content that is maybe above where they are, and they say, okay, let me step back and maybe go study for a couple of months before I come and re-engage. Whereas the alternative, or rather the other side of the coin, is that a guy will come and then he'll find content that is beyond him, and then he'll become curious, so he'll keep coming. Yeah. So am I out of time? No? Yes? Okay, so with
the same with me,
okay. Okay. So with the work of the IDABA, it just looks at it from a wider perspective. Sorry?
Maybe we can just come back to
okay, cool. Thank you. Sorry, guys.
We talk about, we get a chance to maybe Juliana talk a little bit. So from Kenya, let's go to Brazil. So I made my homework, and from what I understood, Kinumi is the Brazilian homologue of strategy AI and Element AI. Is that correct? Maybe you can tell us more
Well, I feel...
about Kinumi and what you do in AI for Good.
Okay, I feel really flattered to be compared to Element AI and strategy. Yeah, we are basically an artificial intelligence company. When we founded Kunumi, all of the founders, we had some opportunities in the past to create companies that become kind of successful. Some of them were acquired by very, very big companies. And when we founded Kunumi, we knew that machine learning was going to become big. It was just about to become big. And we wanted to create a company that would be able to explore machine learning in many different fields. You know, we didn't want to create like AI for health or AI for finance or just chatbots. We wanted to be kind of generalists. But there we were doing like AI in a country that has more than 200 million people. And it's a very, very unequal country. It's not a poor country, it's a very unequal country. So we realized, okay, we don't want to create a company that will just, be successful, make a lot of money, we're going to be very rich. That's not the point. The point is, we want to create a company that can take AI to places, like you just said, that it wouldn't be natural. It wouldn't, there is no big check behind this. So what we do is we take on big customers. We do develop a lot of enterprise solutions, but we dedicate some of the revenue also to helping in many different causes that we find don't get enough attention. Yeah, I mean, we try to be as inclusive as possible. It's very difficult to recruit women in the area of AI because there are very few women in computing in general, especially in Brazil. It's something that I find it hard to understand, and we try to work with as many groups as we can into getting more women in the workplace within Kunumi and within other communities as well. So we have been doing this for 3 years now, And right now we are in the point where we figure out that, okay, we need to get more serious about the side, the research side. So far we have called what we have been doing outside of the commercial side, Kunomi research. And this is about to change because we're going to found a different, completely different legal entity called EPICO. And EPICO is going to take, it's going to be in a position, it's going to be structured in a way that's going to be able to take on private funding that is interested in this kind of impact work that we are doing. So we're going to still have Kunomi, we're going to still have the commercial side, and we're also going to have this let's say, it's not really a non-profit, but a kind of research side as well. Okay.
A little bird has told me that you have a very interesting path that is into AI for linguistics. How is that possible?
Yeah, I wonder who is the little bird. I think it's.
I don't want to say my source.
Yeah.
My question around this is, how does discipline diversity contribute to the development of your own AI projects? Or is it independent?
So the real path is that in college I liked a lot mathematics and philosophy because I really like abstractions. Sorry?
Me too.
You too? Good. And I didn't like physics and chemistry. It was too concrete. And so, I got seduced by a computer. I like the fact to program them to do whatever I want. So I went to study in pure mathematics with computer science size. And then master, I was touching at the time artificial intelligence and natural language processing. And at the end, there was a big deception for me because I thought that the engineers didn't know what they were talking about. And I was saying to myself, if I want to understand language, if you break a bone, you go to a doctor. If you want to understand language, you speak to a linguist. So I said, I will immerse myself in humanities. So I do the PhD in linguistics. And after that, I studied brain and cognitive science at MIT. So I like the fact to bring people from the outside of computer science field into the lab. And that's a great way I found to drive my project and also to bring more women in. Because they're all doing all those great projects that are good. They're not necessarily in computer science, but to bring them either as intern or sometimes even as master student, and for rare case, they can jump into a master in engineering. It mixes in the lab. So I have 50% women always in the lab. We are like 49, 50, 51. You know, it's just like that. Yeah. So it's really the driving force behind my research because I'm bringing people from the outside in, and that's what I did for myself. So I put myself there and come back in. So that's my path. Yeah.
If I want to go back to Kunomi and your own AI projects, maybe you could tell us more of what are your ingredients into AI for good within your company?
Okay. First of all, for us, it's very difficult. When we talk about AI for good, it's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing for me to define good. What is good, right? It's really contested. So we try to get a definition of good, which applies like here and now. Maybe it's not going to apply like 100 years from now, but that's okay. Which is, we try to work on projects that if they are successful, they are going to have impact on as many people as possible, especially people who need it most. So we have been working with, like, for instance, with the Brazilian public healthcare system, with some of the hospitals of the Brazilian public healthcare system. Brazil has a public health system. It's not very good. I mean, but it's way better than not having a public health system. And what we have been doing is looking at projects where we can help them optimize things like ICU bed allocation, for instance, which is a huge problem in the public health system.
So this is one of your ingredients.
Yeah. So we look at the project and say, okay, is there expertise there? I mean, we don't work alone. We always work with experts in medical science, in whatever field we're working on. And if there is expertise and it's a problem that has a big impact, and if we can make available it to a large number of people, then it meets our criteria for us to spend time working on it. So we have projects around ICU, we have projects around chronic pain, we have projects, some very ambitious projects about Alzheimer's disease detection, but from the blood samples instead of from the more invasive exams that we have today. All of this, I mean, it's a little bit like a venture capitalist style thing. If we think like if one of these projects succeeds, it's already have been worth working on in all of them.
Totally get it. Okay. Caitlin, I heard that you use natural language processing for various and diverse African languages and dialects, if I may say, to achieve AI for good. So now it's your turn to talk about your ingredients for AI for good.
Okay, so the NLP for African Languages project is one of the open source projects that we're pushing in the community this year particularly. And it really came about because a colleague and I sat down and we were asking ourselves, why is it not possible to, for example, do image captioning in Kiswahili? Or why is it not possible for me to buy an Alexa and send it to my grandmother in the village? She may not be able to read and write, but she's not stupid. She can speak my mother tongue. So with a voice-enabled device, she should be able to plug into the digital economy, but she cannot. And the reason why she cannot is not because the technology does not exist. It does. It's just not been adapted to this context. So yeah, that's basically the root of it all. We're creating an open source project where various people can contribute resources for the languages that they care about. And the first two that we're doing is we're translating the MS COCO dataset, which is an image captioning dataset, into African languages, and then also preparing datasets for machine translation. Right now we're just doing the Bible because it's a really good resource that's been translated into a lot of African languages. So just aligning the sentences and then making it available to people. Yeah, that's really where we're at with NLP.
Yeah. If I go back to you, Philip, a direct question. Does your company's current business model has a direct impact on the ability of establishing AI for good?
Yes, so first of all, just a quick note on AI for good. I think it's kind of a word that's being used quite a lot, and people say, who's doing AI for evil, right? And maybe some, but... I'm
taking notes.
Yeah. Not us. Not anywhere at AIIA. We really care about doing this project. But what I wanted to say is, it's hard to find the right word for what we're trying to do, which is essentially, my marketing team said AI for those who would not normally have access to it was too long for the website. So, in short, we really have a space in the company where we can do these kinds of projects, and we've established it from day one. In addition to, establishing strong ethical frameworks and things like that, partly because we believe the successful companies of the future are rooted in initiatives like that. I think, there was this quote I noted in my little book this morning. I don't find something wrong with capitalism per se. What I find wrong with capitalism is it doesn't create enough capitalists, right? And this is partly the problem here. Trying to create wealth is not the issue. It's the distribution of that wealth. And we strongly believe that successful enterprises in the future will have to take that in consideration a lot more than enterprises in the past. So that's why we've established a part in the company from the beginning where we could do that. Hence this AI for Good group in London, where it's a group of around 12 people working almost exclusively on such projects and already having a lot of impact.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Now, if I want to go to your ingredients for AI for good, what was the idea behind developing the strategy AI able to teach sign languages that we have seen there, maybe, the audience? But who were your contributors, and is it accessible to public?
Okay, so I want to start talking about the AI for good ingredient, and I have to say that I totally agree with Philip. In fact, I was going to say something very similar. Sometimes, no, it's great. Sometimes when we talk about AI for good, our mind comes to non-profit, people with disabilities, underdeveloped countries. But AI for good is also help society doing projects in a responsible way, in an ethical way, make sure that there is no bias, that there is algorithmic fairness, that what we're doing really is going to help society. No matter if this health society, maybe the health society is really help manufacturing to reduce their costs, because the reduction of the cost, hopefully, is going to be reflected in reduction on the prices, in more people being able to access to that. So this is a clarification. Now, in terms of the sign language, so the reason why I love this project a lot is because when we started doing it, our first idea was, okay, we need to do a demo for NeurIPS. NeurIPS was this last December. We had a booth there. We needed to do a demo. So we asked our staff. There was no VP, C-level, nothing. Our staff, everybody, what do you want to do? What is your idea of what to do? And it came from the ideas of everybody in the company. Let's do this sign language recognition because it's something that we can do with the technology we have, it's feasible in short time, etc. When we got that, say, okay, this is great, but somebody in the team say, I'm worried. I'm worried because I don't want to offend anybody. I want to make sure that the deaf society feels comfortable with us gamifying the sign languages. So we start interviewing deaf societies here in Montreal to make sure that they agree with the concept of the game. From there, we create a partnership with the Deaf Anglo Literacy Center in Montreal. They help us through the data acquisition, making sure that there is no bias, making sure that the game really works in the way that is intended, that these signs are really the signs that are used by the deaf people. And after that, they told where this became an AI for Good project was when they told us as a society, we need to be educating constantly deaf people that are immigrants that come from other countries, that they know sign language in their own language, but they don't know English like American Sign Language. So for them, it was a great tool these were adults, grown-up people that need to learn the signs. So at the end of the day, we developed this, we have a very nice relation with them. And the last thing that we did with this game is, last week in South by Southwest, we created a coffee shop there. Well, it was free coffee. That was a success. Free coffee is always, so yes, long line. So, but the idea is that we had a deaf barista there. And people needed, we had another interface, was a different interface, wasn't a game, but people needed to do the signs, and the system was going to print a label to put, like in a Starbucks, they put what you want in the cup. So the system print a label and you give that to the barista. So now a deaf barista was able to interact and so this is creating jobs. It's not taking jobs away, it's helping people. That's it. Or you can start in the middle if you want. Okay, we go. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I know.
Yes.
As you're here, do you see any AI-based solution applications to prevent what's happening in Venezuela and help alleviate some of the circumstances?
Okay, so yes, I come from Venezuela. Venezuela is a country that is passing very, very, very hard moments. With last year, 1 million % of inflation, 1 million %. So that number makes no sense. Every month died 500 persons in hospitals because there is no antibiotics, simple things. But the point is that I was thinking about that, how AI can help. At this point, there is no AI that can help because what you need is human values and humans trying to help humans. Now, if this change, AI can do a lot. Why? Because the reason why this happened is because in Venezuela, the same that in Brazil, there is a big, big inequality between the social classes. So, and the only way to reduce that inequality is through education. Because what happened is that right now in Venezuela, if you're born and you are poor, you don't have any chance in life to do anything. Because if you're poor, you need to go to public school. Public schools are bad. Teachers don't go. The student desertion is very high. So how AI can help? So I was thinking about this. So first of all, imagine that things go better, that now we have schools, and we want to avoid desertion. So we can use churn prediction algorithms in the same way that you can use that to make sure that people do not unsubscribe from your cable TV. But now you use that to make sure that you detect on time kids that are going to leave school. And you make sure that they are going to get educated. And you send that to the social services. So this kid is going to see a path, is going to see a future, and is going to be able to be a productive member of the society. So I think that reducing inequality is the most important thing for a country like Venezuela to really go away from this situation.
Thank you for sharing this stuff. Now let's fly back to Nairobi. You are from Africa is talking. I wonder what Africa is talking about.
Okay, so Africa is Talking is the company that I work for. It's the job that actually pays the bills. What we do is we're a communication service provider with a focus on software developers. So when I say communication service provider, what I mean is our products are stuff like SMS, USSD, voice, airtime, and payments. And when I say with a focus on software developers, what I mean is we build APIs, or we give developers infrastructure, and then they can build end-user applications that make use of our products. And moving on to how we can collaborate to achieve social good using AI, right now what we're doing in the field of machine learning and data science is just trying to make our infrastructure not be a pipe. Right now what we do is we deliver your message, as a customer you're happy, your message has been sent, or your call has gone through, but we want to make it an intelligent system such that you know what time of day is best to reach out to your clientele, you know what sort of language to put into the message to maximize on responses. And I see a natural evolution of us being people who give developers infrastructure to be able to build applications that use AI. So we've talked about community and how we equip them with skill, but then at the end of the day, we're just going to have a bunch of people who know how to use AI, but then don't have the infrastructure to do it. And also just building on the NLP example, right now it's very easy to use, for example, Google APIs to do sentiment analysis. You give it a sentence and it tells you positive or negative. So I think a good evolution for us, or where I hope we grow to, is being able to give devs that, but for African languages, which is the context that they're in. So being able to send a sentence to us and then we immediately tell you this is positive, this is negative, but now in whatever languages it is that you're building for. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I guess we have a lot of meetings right now. Let's go to the healthcare. Juliana, AI for healthcare. What is your own vision concerning the future of AI healthcare?
Wow, that's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, AI, I think, because of, as I said, because we started a company that is a generalist company, everywhere we look, we see opportunity for applying AI. Everywhere. If you give me any company, any business, any government, anything, I will find some way to apply AI. So one of the things that we think a lot about is like, okay, we have limited resources, and where should we apply AI as a society to reap the best benefits? We can make people click on more ads, but is that the best thing we can do with AI, really? And when we looked at it, we see healthcare as one of the fields that can be really revolutionized through the use of AI. Not because AI is going to replace doctors, but because AI is going to make the expertise that today is available for a very small portion of the population and make it available to everyone. So if you're born in Brazil, in a big city like São Paulo, Rio, Belo Horizonte, where I'm from, you probably have access to a good healthcare system. But if you live, in some not so far away places in Brazil, you never get to see a specialist in your life. And we believe that if we can somehow distill the knowledge that these specialists have into systems and make these systems available, even if they are not 100% accurate. Everybody wants 100% accuracy in healthcare, by the way. Even if they are not 100% accurate, it's still going to make a huge impact. So that's where I see AI in healthcare going.
Amazing, amazing. If you want to go still through the AI healthcare, I know that one of your main expertise involves using AI in detecting and preventing from cognitive troubles. Could you maybe give us a concrete example at first, and then as these subjects require really close interactions with vulnerable subjects, how do you deal with these underrepresented communities? How do you protect them to prevent from an unwanted harm that you could cause without exposing their data?
Yeah, data. Yeah, data privacy and the danger of wanting data all the time, because we're computer scientists, we want to apply algorithms, we want data. And I call some of my colleagues, you're a data sucker, you know? Because you're always coming and trying to suck a data here, another one there, to publish just a paper with more accuracy and stuff, and after that you say, well, I published, next data. And I'm saying to them, no, you can't do that. You have to give back something. You have to collaborate with those people. So for young offenders, it was really delicate. And my colleague from in criminology has to pass like 2 years in it to be able to access it, and to pass 2 times in court to be able to access it. Each of us have a ethics committee, of course. Each of my students passed many ethical courses. And the access to the data is strictly limited to one server in one specific place with dedicated password access. And there's no save my password on the machine. So, and at the end of the project, those data are completely wiped out, will be wiped out from the server. For the older people, we have recording and filming people in spontaneous conversation in Ecuador, in Mexico, in a psychiatric hospital, and also in Europe, and now it would be also in Canada. So of course there's many ethical committee involved in each of the country, in each of the institution, and also a protection of the anonymized data. So the pseudonym of the person is completely different from the real name. And the correspondence is in my office because I'm a control freak. So it's always a danger, but you can mitigate that. And we all know as researchers how to mitigate that. The problem comes from leaks that, inadvertently a student will find it more easy to put that on Dropbox because, or even, I remember a student that put a video on Google Drive and I was about to kill him. Because it's on Google Drive, then it's on Google. So I'm really a freak out about that, but it's not. No. Okay, I mitigate. Yeah.
Okay, to carry on about the subject of data, and knowing that you have published a white paper at Element AI recently that I haven't had a chance to read on data trusts, are we on the same track? Can you tell us what a data trust is, and could it be a solution in the scope of AI for good for the citizens?
Yeah. So first of all, this white paper on data trust, it's published on our website, but it's really not our idea, right? It's the result of the work of many people from across the civil society, academics, people from government, human rights advocate, things like that, right? So it's an interesting idea that brings a lot of people together. And essentially there we kind of recognize that people have lost trust in the current trustees of data. And if you look at the problem is that the data and the algorithms right now sit at the same place. The companies that apply machine learning and AI are the ones that collect the data. There is no distance between them. And as users of these services, we go there, we read the terms of service. Well, nobody reads them anyway. And we don't have a choice. We click accept and we go there. And when we click accept, we basically say, well, you do whatever you want with the data. And these companies face eventually public scrutiny, and they're like, yeah, we'll auto-regulate. But there's definitely a problem with this, joining of data and algorithm. What data trust proposes, and first of all, it recognizes, I think what's super important here is the recognition that technology by itself is never going to be a solution. Data trust is about how can we politically, legally set up new data governance models that would help us achieve the kind of things we can achieve with AI today without having the problem of combining algorithms and data in the same entity. So it's essentially proposing to set this up as a trust, the kind of trust you might know, with 3 different entities interacting. The settlers, the people who have the data, you and I when it's public data, or cities when you're talking about urban data that comes from IoT devices. So the settlers, the trustees, the person in charge of the data itself, and the beneficiaries, the people who want to use algorithm on that data. So 3 entities working together to create these data trusts. And what's great about them is that they come with a charter. And data trust with a charter means, well, when you sign these terms and conditions, you sign them for the data trust. There's a data trust that says, the goal with this data is to help trustees, the possible path.
Our public, what kind of ingredients you got out of it. So I think maybe we should pitch the question to the crowd. What do you think? Okay. So what did you hear from this that I can add to my cooking pot here as an ingredient for how to make beneficial artificial uses in AI? One thing I did hear, Carolina, is there's ethical, there's responsible AI, and then there's the other feeling when you actually feel that what you're doing is useful and is being used. And I tend to create a little distinction between the two, because you can have a good marketing system that's responsible. It's not necessarily AI for good, but it's ethical and it's responsible. AI for good being something that's really being applied by someone who has a need and a user. So what did you hear? Who wants the microphone to ask a question or give feedback about what it takes to make AI for social good? And what's a good definition? Wow, seriously. Oh, I see a hand. Saw a hand.
Thanks. I'm worried of becoming the annoying guy with the annoying hat asking too many questions, but I'll do it anyway. Talking about AI for good, and you guys touched a little bit on it, and I'd appreciate if you expand a little bit. When the bar is so low, or it's like the wild, wild west, anything goes, just saying that we don't break the rules seems to be AI for good. What are those sort of those progressive values? I know a lot of the conversations here are about those values, what they should be, but in your minds, what are those values that AI for good should pursue?
A quick, yeah.
Well,
Add, we're cooking.
I think there is a very important distinction you made there. One thing is not using AI for intentionally evil purposes, and a different thing is, I think intentionally because a lot of evil things have been perpetrated over the centuries by people who were actually intending to do good. So we have to be very careful about what is good. That's why I said that the definition of good is something that it changes over time. What we consider good today is not what would have been considered good 100 years ago, and 100 years from now, the answer is going to be different. So the first thing we should, I think, I like to frame this in the terms of, in economics, there is a concept called externality, which is basically how the activity you do affects other people around you, sometimes in unintended consequences. And when we create AI systems, we have the possibility of create very big externalities. They can be positive or they can be negative. And we always have to worry about the externalities of the systems we are creating, and we should try to make these externalities positive as much as we can. But as you said, the bar is very low, so sometimes just doing the right thing is good enough in the current environment. But I think as things progress, we're going to see more and more people concerned that when you create an AI system that automates something, let's say, is this automation ultimately going to put more CO2 in the atmosphere, for instance? And this is the kind of externality we have to worry about, because when you automate something, things can multiply very, very quickly. So I don't know if I answered your question, but it's a very complex question. It's not a simple. We kind of see a good thing when we recognize a good thing when we see it, but it's very difficult to define, in a set of rules. Maybe we should apply machine learning in defining this.
If I may, so the question is excellent. What are the values beyond setting the bar really low and saying don't be evil? Not naming any company. Not naming any company. I used to work at that company. I would say if you ask 100 startup founders, you will get 100 different answers. And the values you will get, sometimes you will agree with, sometimes, yeah, maybe not, right? But I think what it highlights is the fact that we live in a diverse society with people having different opinions on what's the right value to put out there. The most important thing is to value, in my opinion, to value the diversity and to always strive to build a system where that diversity can emerge. One of the strongest sentences we heard this morning was at the interface of capitalism and diversity, capitalism and democracy, democracy always loses, right? Well, we have to reverse that. That's the thing we should be working on. And if we talk about AI for good, the best thing we can do is make sure this doesn't happen. What we should strive to live in is in a society that reflects who we are. And maybe it's not ideal, and there's a lot of people thinking different ways, but that's the cost of democracy. And if you ask me, I wish that no single company goes out there and dominates, even if they have values that are quote-unquote good, because they're not reflecting the diversity of the population that's out there. So if you ask me, we should strive for a system where we never see these big, super powerful corporations with their monolithic value systems taking the front of the stage.
Just building up
Don't tell my CEO. I'm kidding.
Building up on the point of diversity, I think the landscape in AI would be very different if it was driven by communities as opposed to companies or geographic regions. So I would say that on the journey of democratizing machine learning, we really need to empower communities to be able to innovate solutions for themselves. If we lived in a world where we were not talking about what Facebook did or what Google did, but rather what's...
Also something about in a relationship, and not as grandiose as a society as a whole, but also doing it the right way. I have a startup that came to me and they said to me, we're going to do something fantastic in education. And I said, okay, do you have an educator on board?
Or context, why did? I think
diversity topic. I think that as people doing AI is different maybe from software engineering, because when you do machine learning AI, you have multiple ways to do things. There is not a unique truth. So a lot of times solutions come from iterations, from brainstorming, from discussions. So having a team that is diverse, where you have different perspectives on the table, and this brings us to having females, having male, having different races, different religions. So having diversity in your team gives you the ability to create much richer solutions, but also solutions that respects values in different ways, because, values, my values, there are general values, things that we know are good, but after that, different cultures have different ways to do things. So we need to respect them, we need to listen to them, and we need to make sure that all that enters in the solutions that we're providing.
Thank you. So I was preparing the other panel, so I wasn't totally paying attention. I'm sorry. That was a really good cooking storm. Are we concluding? That's what we're doing. Okay, because I think we're kind of running out of time. I want to thank every single one of you because you've bought some amazing ingredients. I put a whole bunch in there, and there's some more here. I heard community-driven. I heard education. I heard developing with user. I heard distribution of wealth, AI access, ethical frameworks, data trust, really cool new. It's not a new concept. I know I'm a lawyer. It's an old concept, but I think that applying that to AI and data solutions is very interesting. Having responsible, well-built AI, giving back data. Data has value, and we have a lot of community organizations here in the room right now. We need to put our data together, maybe have data trusts for the community, by the community, for the community, and get the value out of that data. Value in a different sense here, valuing diversity, including diversity, working with the user, and I'm going back to the beginning. There's a lot more ingredients in there. You can come and have a look. I will be taking pictures and posting this on social media to make sure that these ingredients are well heard, and I would like to thank you very much for your contributions today. Thank you. And thank you, Hiba. Okay, everybody give Hiba a good round of applause. This was her first moderating a panel, so good round of applause to Hiba, our moderator, as well. Okay. So as we are talking about AI for good, we have 3 startups, and I wanted to mention Quadridge kindly offered a tablet for your coup de cœur. Je ne sais pas comment traduire coup de cœur en anglais. Les interprètes en arrière vont le faire pour moi. Merci. Donc, vous venez de voir quelques startups dans les présentations que vous avez eues. Prenez le temps de noter s'il y a une startup coup de cœur que vous avez. Et là, on va en voir 3, justement, une après l'autre, des petits pitchs très courts de 5 minutes. Il y a Aquantix, Senabou Goye-Njaye. Il y a Nectar, Marc-André Roberge et Justice Spot, Valentin Calipel. Le premier, dont les slides sont prêtes en arrière. Alors, Tariq, fais-moi signe. Qui est prêt? Valentin? Aquantix, excellent. Aquantix, je t'attends. Senabou. Senabou était avec NextAI, hein? Elle s'en vient, elle s'en vient. Allô? Enchantée en personne. OK, je te passe le micro. On a 5 minutes pour présenter Aquantix. Merci beaucoup.
Merci à toi. Okay. So, hi everybody. So I'm here to tell you about how at Aquantix we're using AI to actually bring a lot of awareness about water and the issues related with it. Yay, okay. So as some of you may know, tomorrow is the World Water Day. And actually, one of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN is to provide clean water and sanitation to the whole world. Currently, 1/3 of the population is living in regions plagued by water scarcity. So with the growth of the population right now, issues like not having access to clean water and having to go out of your way to get water from wells, which is kind of dirty, is an issue that is just growing all around the world. My home country, for example, is actually suffering from that. The government has to regularly shut down the pipes, and that's really a big problem, and it's going to affect more and more people if we don't do something about it. Right now, we kind of try to encourage people to be more responsible with the way they use water. One of the things they do is just tell people, take shorter baths and whatever, reduce your water footprint. But when you actually look at the industrial use of water, you see that it's much bigger than the use of water in residential sectors. So one thing we can do is encourage corporations to be more responsible with the way they use water. But since they're not being very transparent about what they're doing with water, there's no way for people to actually target a certain company because of their really negative impact on the water sources, or actually encourage the ones that are being responsible with their use. So, well, okay. I'm pressing the big green button and it's not doing anything. Okay, here you go. So what we're trying to do at Aquantix is actually use AI to increase the transparency of companies. By building the biggest database on water in the world, we can actually just democratize access to that information and also assist clients in their decision making. If you look at investors, for example, a lot of them are starting to understand the importance of sustainability, so they're trying to practice something called responsible investing. They're taking into account stuff like the carbon footprint, but water footprint is not something they understand just yet. With our data, they'll be able to actually add water as an ESG risk. It's one of the top global risks, and it should be taken into account. Okay. What? Je sais pas, en fait. Ouais, s'il vous plaît. Oh. Okay, so our approach is actually just using AI in order to collect a lot of data. We also use it to map corporate locations and do estimations and forecasting. I'll go over it just now. So the first step, collecting data. We get data from a variety of sources, like financial reports. We get, for example, the number of employees, the revenue of a company. We look at sustainable reports. So we get information like the water use of companies that are actually transparent. We also get information of geographical regions in general, so from open sources like the WRI, or just get information from NASA, and climate data. Please. Okay, here you go. So for the mapping of corporate locations, basically we just pinpoint all of the locations in which a company is operating. And with that information, we just go to some sort of satellite imagery provider and just get images of those locations. If I go with this example in particular, you can see that by using convolutional neural networks, we could identify the type of location they're operating in. So it's like, if it's like agricultural use or an industrial use or like something rural, we can basically find it with neural networks. We can also just find the boundaries of a building itself, and some of the data is topological, so we can get the height and then get the size of the building itself. By doing so, we can not only guess what the company is doing at that specific location, but also understand the size or the proportion of the production they're doing in that specific region. The next step is to do the estimation and forecasting. So basically, we have information on the company itself and also information about the region they're operating in. So the idea is to put the two together and associate each location to a basin that they're operating in, or basins, if they're affecting many ones. So you'll know actually the price of the water in that region. You can get whether or not water is available, or if it's a region that's actually scarce in water. You can get the climate information, the probability of drought, and assign all of that to that specific location. So basically, we can identify a couple of different risks linked to that location in particular. All right, so the possibilities. I mean, Valentine just mentioned it like 5 minutes ago. There's so much value in data, and that's what we're doing. We're providing data. You can compute we can actually compute different types of financial risks linked to water and better engage with those companies. For example, I use investors as an example, but a government can actually use that data to just better manage their water sources. If a company, for example, located in Canada, has mines in Congo, you can actually see if that company is just withdrawing tons of water while the people in that region are just suffering from water scarcity. So that's really the idea behind it. We want to actually cause industries to be held accountable for what they're doing with the water sources. And hopefully we can actually ensure that the quality of water sources stays good for the next generations, you know? So I guess I might be running out of time. Thank you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Here's my email, and yeah. I'm also francophone, so don't hesitate to reach out. Genre, si vous parlez français, je peux répondre à vos questions, OK? Merci à vous.
Merci, Sénabou. Woo! Sénabou, est-ce que c'est à toi le cahier de notes? OK. J'appelle Marc-André Roberge de Nectar qui utilise l'intelligence artificielle pour les abeilles.
Merci. Ah, OK, c'est beau, c'est beau. J'ai pas de joke à vous compter particulièrement, malheureusement. OK, parfait. Donc, bonjour à tous. Je me présente Marc-André Roberge, un des cofondateurs chez Nectar, aussi apiculteur. Et chez Nectar, on donne une voix aux abeilles. Donc, comme vous le savez probablement tous, en ce moment, les abeilles meurent. À chaque année, on perd environ 35 à 40 des ruches, et ce, partout à travers le monde. Et tout le monde dans la pièce ici devrait s'en faire, puisqu'environ le tiers de la nourriture qu'on fait pousser dépend de la pollinisation des abeilles. Donc, l'industrie responsable de cette pollinisation-là, c'est l'industrie de l'apiculture, donc une industrie de niche de 15 milliards de dollars qui, oui, propose du miel pour la consommation, mais surtout offre des services de pollinisation. La pollinisation, de la manière que ça fonctionne, c'est qu'on a des ruches qui sont louées par les agriculteurs, qui sont déposées dans les champs par les apiculteurs. Les abeilles vont aller autour, polliniser, puis butiner les fleurs. Malheureusement, la réalité d'un apiculteur pour faire un suivi de sa ruche, par exemple, est la suivante. Donc, pour faire ce suivi-là, il doit se rendre physiquement sur place, ouvrir la ruche, regarder ce qui se passe à l'intérieur et ensuite réagir par rapport au problème. Donc, si on prend ça, puis on met ça à l'échelle de 1000 ruches, par exemple, comme c'est la moyenne pour les fermes commerciales canadiennes, on comprend assez rapidement que cette manutention-là devient très débordante pour l'apiculteur en termes de frais opérationnels, par exemple. Donc, d'un côté, on a des apiculteurs qui ont trop de travail à faire puis trop d'assessment à faire pour être capables de bien suivre leurs ruches et ça résulte en 40 % de morts à chaque année. Et de l'autre côté, on a des agriculteurs pour qui cette pollinisation-là, ils en dépendent entièrement puis qui n'ont aucune transparence sur le processus puis qui ne peuvent pas suivre en temps réel les performances des ruches dans leur champ. Fait que nous, ce qu'on propose chez Nectar, notre mission, c'est vraiment de s'assurer que les apiculteurs font un bon travail en leur fournissant un outil technologique qui leur permet de faire un suivi des ruches pour les élever en pleine santé et fournir aux agriculteurs les mesures pour bien comprendre comment la pollinisation fonctionne pour l'optimiser. La forme que ça prend, c'est une plateforme de gestion de ruches d'abeilles qui utilise des capteurs, un petit peu d'intelligence artificielle, et ensuite une plateforme web. De la manière que ça fonctionne en termes de proposition de valeur pour un côté comme de l'autre, c'est de pouvoir suivre en temps réel les performances des ruches, leur santé, leur comportement et leur force pour pouvoir être proactif et prendre les bonnes décisions au bon moment pour les garder en santé. Puis de l'autre côté, de pouvoir commencer à optimiser les standards de pollinisation pour s'assurer qu'on a une pollinisation optimale pour la croissance de nos cultures. La manière que ça fonctionne, c'est qu'on a des capteurs dans la ruche qui vont venir chercher de l'information par rapport aux abeilles, donc température, humidité, fréquence sonore, éventuellement le poids de la ruche, la position géographique. On va analyser ça en ligne. Puis, quand je parle d'analyser, ce n'est pas juste d'envoyer des données brutes aux clients, parce que si j'ai 1000 ruches, d'avoir 1000 fois la température, 24 fois par jour, ça ne me sert absolument à rien. C'est vraiment de traduire ça en langage où nous, on peut comprendre ça, les humains, pour s'assurer qu'on prend les bonnes décisions au bon moment. Fait qu'un de nos fonctionnalités phares en ce moment, par exemple, c'est la détection à distance du statut de la reine abeille, la reine qui est essentielle à la bonne croissance de la ruche. Donc, en regardant, la thermorégulation de la ruche, on est capable de voir si la reine est présente ou pas dans la ruche, si elle est morte, si elle est rendue trop vieille, etc. En termes de prix, c'est un modèle hybride où on vend du hardware puis on vend du software. Puis, ce qui est intéressant, c'est qu'on revient d'un espèce de tour de l'Amérique du Nord. On a pu parcourir différentes régions en haute concentration de ruches. Puis, en ce moment, donc, en présentant ce qu'on faisait à ces différents clients-là, puis en montrant des études de cas positives qu'on a réussi à générer jusqu'à maintenant, puis on a une belle traction en ce moment. Donc, on a vraiment des ventes qui se font avec des ruchers qui ont entre 1000 et 30 000 ruches pour lancer des pilotes, pour commencer à optimiser leurs opérations, s'assurer qu'ils prennent un bon soin de leurs abeilles, et ce, partout à travers l'Amérique du Nord. Donc, en termes d'équipe, évidemment, ça, c'est nous au bureau à chaque jour. Donc, j'ai deux super cofondateurs, un qui s'appelle Xavier, qui est ingénieur électrique en maîtrise à l'ETS, ou plutôt qui a fini sa maîtrise à l'ETS. Evan, qui a un background en recherche apicole, puis en application de certains modules d'intelligence artificielle, donc s'occupe de tout ce qui est scientifique chez Nectar. J'ai un background en design industriel, puis en apiculture. Et par la suite, si on fait un petit résumé de ce qu'on fait chez Nectar, donc Nectar est la compagnie qui va aider l'industrie apicole à augmenter son taux de survie, puis de s'assurer que les apiculteurs soient plus productifs, puis qu'ils fassent plus d'argent par rapport à ces abeilles-là. De cette manière-là, on s'assure qu'ils puissent offrir des services de pollinisation qui sont efficaces pour garder en sécurité notre banque alimentaire, peut-être sauver le monde, on ne sait jamais, mais vraiment s'assurer qu'on continue d'avoir accès à notre diversité alimentaire qu'on a en ce moment. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Nectar. J'invite maintenant Valentin Calipel de JusticeBot.
Hello à tous, bonjour, donc je m'appelle Valentin Calipel. Aujourd'hui, je viens vous parler du projet JusticeBot, qui est un projet qui vise à résoudre de manière peut-être plus intelligente les conflits dans nos sociétés. C'est un projet qui est lancé par le laboratoire de cyberjustice de Montréal, un organisme à but non lucratif qui vise à améliorer la justice par l'intégration des technologies de l'information. La problématique à laquelle s'adresse le projet JusticeBot est la problématique du droit du logement au Québec. La problématique est la suivante, c'est qu'aujourd'hui, et par exemple un article de la presse nous l'expliquait la semaine dernière, il y a de très nombreux citoyens au Québec et de très nombreux locataires qui ne connaissent pas forcément leurs droits en matière de logement. Et par exemple, à Montréal, un logement sur 4 est contaminé par des moisissures, par exemple, et la problématique de l'insalubrité est très importante et conduit, par exemple, à des grands enjeux de santé publique. La problématique ici, c'est que deux choses. Premièrement, eh bien, le citoyen ne connaît pas forcément ses droits. Et deuxièmement, à partir du moment où un citoyen ou un locataire découvre qu'il y a de la moisissure dans son logement, entre le moment où il identifie cette moisissure et le moment où éventuellement la Régie du logement du Québec va prononcer une décision qui va lui permettre, par exemple, d'obtenir une réduction sur son loyer ou alors la terminaison de son bail, s'écoule 1500 jours en moyenne. Autrement dit, on assiste à un véritable déni de justice qui crée des externalités très négatives. Le projet de JusticeBot vise deux choses en particulier. La première, c'est rendre l'information juridique plus accessible aux locataires, c'est-à-dire rendre le droit de la Régie du logement plus intelligible. Et deuxièmement, donner aux citoyens des informations concrètes qui va par exemple leur permettre de connaître leurs chances de succès en matière d'un conflit lié à la Régie du logement, ce qui va lui permettre, à travers des informations plus transparentes et objectives, eh bien, d'identifier s'il est utile ou non d'aller à la Régie du logement, ou alors d'avoir des informations qui vont leur permettre, par exemple, de pouvoir négocier son conflit de manière objective avec son propriétaire, et autrement dit, de limiter l'engorgement de la Régie du logement. La méthodologie qui a été utilisée ici est fondamentalement basé sur le fait de savoir est-ce qu'on peut modéliser le raisonnement juridique. Concrètement, comment marche le droit ? Eh bien, à une situation factuelle donnée, par exemple, est-ce qu'il y a de la moisissure ou non dans un logement ? Eh bien, il faut déterminer quelle est la règle de droit qui s'applique. Et cette règle de droit, qui va être donc par exemple la loi sur la Régie du logement, va nous permettre de savoir si un locataire va pouvoir obtenir la fin de son bail ou la réduction de son loyer. La question que nous nous posions, c'est de savoir, peut-on déléguer ce raisonnement juridique à un algorithme ? Et de ce point de vue, on a une chance particulière au Québec et dans la plupart des pays de droit civiliste, c'est d'avoir le Code civil. Le Code civil, c'est ni plus ni moins qu'une systématisation du droit, c'est-à-dire une façon systématique de traiter des problèmes juridiques. Eh bien, c'est un langage qui est compréhensible à condition d'être traduit selon un modèle logique par des algorithmes. Et cependant, le droit, heureusement, n'est pas simplement mécanique, il est aussi capable d'embrasser des questions plus génériques, comme par exemple, quel est l'état de l'habitabilité d'un bien? Et cette question, eh bien, malheureusement, n'est pas intelligible pour un algorithme. Par conséquent, il faut être capable d'identifier les facteurs qui sont derrière la détermination de cette condition d'habitabilité. Et vous voyez ici l'avantage de l'intelligence artificielle, et en particulier d'avoir accès à beaucoup de données, notamment des données de la Régie du logement, c'est-à-dire toutes les décisions qui ont été rendues en matière de la Régie du logement dans les dernières années, peut nous servir à identifier ces facteurs à condition d'utiliser une méthodologie qui est celle que nous avons proposée en 3 étapes, c'est-à-dire avec l'aide d'un grand nombre d'étudiants de cliniques juridiques, identifier les facteurs qui sont potentiellement importants pour déterminer ce que c'est que la condition d'habitabilité d'un immeuble. Et donc on voit par exemple qu'il y a ici la moisissure, les punaises de lit, etc. Et dans un second temps, l'idée c'était d'aller étiqueter un certain nombre de centaines de décisions de la Régie du logement pour être capable, eh bien, de cartographier ces différents facteurs pour être ensuite, dans un troisième temps, en mesure d'apprendre à un algorithme à reconnaître les facteurs qui sont susceptibles de peser sur la décision d'un juge et auquel cas de déterminer eh bien, le rôle que ces facteurs ont eu à jouer dans la détermination de savoir si on peut ou non obtenir la terminaison d'un bail ou alors obtenir la réduction du loyer qu'un justiciable pourrait demander. Et vous voyez par exemple les premiers résultats obtenus nous permettent de dire que quand on identifie que l'intensité par exemple d'un de ces facteurs, par exemple la moisissure, est moyenne, eh bien dans 60% des cas, il y a une chance d'obtenir une réduction du loyer et autour de ces montants comme par exemple $379. L'objectif derrière tout ça, c'est de simplement bâtir eh bien, un chatbot qui va, à partir du droit et à partir des facteurs qui ont été identifiés, eh bien, permettre de se poser des questions au justiciable pour lui permettre d'obtenir à la fin une évaluation eh bien, sur ses chances de succès à la Régie du logement. Et c'est le projet au stade où il est, sortira en juin cette année. Et c'est un projet totalement open source, ouvert à tous, et avec notamment dans l'idée de réutiliser cette méthodologie dans d'autres domaines du droit, que ce soit le droit de la consommation, le droit de la fiscalité, etc. Tout ce qui touche tous les citoyens pour que la justice avance un peu plus dans le sens de l'égalité. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Valentin. Bon, on a eu 3 beaux exemples de start-up d'ici. On va prendre une petite pause. Je voudrais vous rappeler que les groupes... premièrement, je vais commencer par partager avec vous une nouvelle qui m'a amené les larmes aux yeux. Quadbridge a décidé de laisser faire la tablette et puis d'offrir à votre start-up coup de cœur 1500 en crédit d'achat en matériel. Hein? C'est bien ça? Où est-ce qu'elle est, Ayane? Là? Elle est en haut, je pense. Donc, vraiment un beau cadeau. Donc, prenez le temps. Il y a une boîte noire dans laquelle vous pouvez mettre les noms. Elle est où, la boîte noire? Là, dans 5 minutes. OK? Alors, à la fin de la pause, peut-être prenez... attendez jusqu'à demain, parce qu'il y a 2 jours de vote là, pour le coup de cœur. Il y a d'autres startups qui s'en viennent. Mais faites des notes mentales là, des noms et tout ça, c'est dans le programme. Donc, on prend une petite pause. Les groupes de discussion vont avoir lieu dans la salle en haut, puis adressez-vous à des bénévoles autour de vous qui vont vous aider à vous diriger à une autre salle. On va prendre une petite pause d'en bas ici, ça va nous permettre de nettoyer, puis quand on revient, c'est le cocktail. Merci.